Melbourne make the grand final after battering Geelong.
The Bulldogs also make the grand final after battering Port Adelaide.
And there is no other games to talk about. That's it, buddy. This is the DrewFooty Show.
Hey, long road, took a tumble down this black hole. Stuck in Sunday league, but I'm on
Hello, you
levels with
welcome back to
Ronaldo.
another episode of the DrewFooty Show. The second last. Maybe there might be two other more after this because we may do a wrap up as well. Go follow DrewFooty_ on Instagram if you haven't already. What are you doing? Get involved in the show through our Instagram. Trying to hit 6K by the end of the month still, Jesse, and it's a bit slow, but we could get there still. I'm going to the grand final next week, so there's going to be a grand final vlog out. Plenty of content to look forward to. Make sure you subscribe. Click the red button down below. The first game we're going to talk about is Melbourne versus Geelong, and it was really hard to decide who were going to be the winners and losers this week, Jesse. But
Or was it very easy?
it was very easy. It's obviously going to go to the Melbourne Demons for getting into the first grand final since 2000. Yes, knowledge.
Nice E minor there from you.
And it was the best finals performance that I've ever seen with my own eyes, definitely, but that I can remember watching as a spectator. Melbourne kicked 5 goals in the first quarter, 4 in the second, 8 goals in the third, and then just coasted home in the fourth quarter, winning by 83 points against Geelong. Absolutely bonkers jonkers, mate. What did you make of the result?
Yeah, like going to the game, I definitely had feelings that there was going to be a smashing on a case of Melbourne smashing Geelong, not so much the other way around. I tipped them by about 4 goals, but I just had a feeling Melbourne are just so much better than, at the time I said they were better than anyone, then we saw the other prelim. But just from the start of the contest, the way they were hitting the ball hard, and then more impressively than that, spreading from the contest, their outside runners and guys like Langdon come to mind. They really cut Geelong up on the outside, and Geelong were having one of those days where they were just dropping all those easy defensive marks. They could have an easy defensive mark and then they'd spill it, and then it would be a stoppage or something like that. It wasn't going their way at all.
Yeah, that run and spread was so evident from where we were sitting. We sort of had a behind the goal angle, so you can see guys like Langdon and Salem, seeing the space on the other side of the ground and just running harder than any other Geelong defender or midfielder to get into that space, which just opened up the play very well. And the bloke of the week, of course, comes from this game. And there was so many nominations, so I'm not going to pin it on one comment that I received, but so many people said Maxi Gawn. So Maxi Gawn, you are the bloke of the week this week. Best on ground, 33 hit-outs, 4 goals in that third quarter. The best individual performance I've ever seen in a final. He just lit up Optus. Every time the ball went into that 50 and ended up with Gawn, everyone was losing their marbles. And even when he didn't have it, everyone was saying, kick it to Gawn, kick it to Gawn. There were Gawny chants in the stand. He's a very good
guy.
Very good guy. Yo, are the bloke of the week. Enough of us waffling about this game. We are going to get the expert analyzer in, Caden MacDonald. Let's see what he has to say about his Ds.
The eyes are silent.
Coming in all the way from Geelong, we have Caden MacDonald. And you've been on this show a number of times, MacDonald. Definitely the third most frequent guest on the DrewFooty Show. Now, it's getting better and better each week. You come on earlier in the season and it was like, God, Melbourne are looking good. And then it was like, God, Melbourne could actually win the flag. And now you're coming on 2 weeks before Melbourne are playing in the grand final. How does it feel, mate?
Boys, thanks for having me. I appreciate you guys getting me on the show. Yeah, it is unbelievable. And it's quite funny because earlier in the year, I remember watching Jesse's end of year predictions. I think he did it from halfway point of the year. And I think you did as well, Drew. Both of you have spoken really positively about the Ds throughout the season. And the longer and longer it's gone on, the more it's sort of been talked into existence. So what a performance on the weekend by the Ds. We've got one more to go, but I can't even fathom that we're even in this point, to be honest. And yeah, it's unbelievable.
I've pretty much been on the D's train all year in terms of thinking that they're going to win the premiership. But when Geelong had that sort of 10-game run where they won 9 or 10 in a row, they were looking really scary. Jesse, you've sort of thought Melbourne were going to win the flag all year just about. When did it sort of start to appear to you we can actually win it all this year? Not that you have yet, but you're in that game now. So when did you start to think, this could actually happen?
For a number of years, even when we finished 5th, we could not beat a top 4 team to save our life. For my whole Melbourne existence, we've never been able to beat the top 5 or 6. And even when we came 5th, I reckon we were dropping games to 5th, 6th, 7th. So midway through the year, when we knocked off the Western Bulldogs on Friday night and then the Brisbane Lions the following Friday night, back to back as well. I thought really impressive to get up for the Western Bulldogs game, but then to back that up, I thought, oh, geez, that is really, really impressive. And that's when my head started to go, well, we can beat the best. We've beaten sort of everyone in the top 9 or 10 at the minute. So this is really, really promising. But we did have the mid-year blues, which got me really, really nervous. And I thought the cliff was coming, and I thought we were going to finish. I thought we could have ended the season similar to the Bulldogs at one stage, middle of the year, with draws to Hawthorn, losses to GWS. I was sitting there going, oh, geez, can the end of the season come quick enough? They've now won 6 in a row, and they're on the brink of 7, and it could be 7 heaven if they can get it done in 2 weeks' time. So, yeah, it's crazy. It's genuinely crazy. I can't really fathom that I'm going to watch us in a grand final.
Caden, we've talked a lot in the past about how you're more or less from Geelong, being a Demons fan. You've witnessed so much, painful experiences at GMHBA. How much has this year, and in particular that prelim final, done for kind of making up for all that pain?
Healing the wounds.
You might.
Yeah, that's a great question, Jesse. It has almost eradicated any sort of thing that football club had over us for a long time, and I felt like that hung over our heads for a long time. I felt like we were quite submissive when we went down to GMHBA season upon season. We would get just flogged and bullied, genuinely bullied, and it would be bullied on field, and then I'd get bullied off field. I'd get my head chucked down the toilet because my team lost by 190 points. Real full-on sort of robust discussions with your mates at the pub about, geez, your team's shit. To anywhere. Like this town has really let me know about how good they are and how bad they are. And that fortress of a football stadium has just brought down even the best Melbourne sides that I've seen over the last little bit. So it was like so poetic, that Max Gawn goal in round 23. It was the old Melbourne, 44 points down, GMHBA Stadium. Who cares if we roll over? We've got a second chance. We're playing Port Adelaide at Adelaide next week. Rest a couple players will bounce back, but it genuinely felt like the phoenix out of the ashes. It felt like a turning of the tide to come back from that and to get the job done. And I feel like it's broken the shackles. I felt like that comeback has broken the shackles. And I read something on Twitter. Since the D's were 44 points down against the Cats to GMHBA Stadium, the scoreline's like 160 to 30. It's like 170 to 40 or something. So in the 6 quarters preceding us being 44 points down, we smashed that football club. It has sort of made up for a lot of the pain and frustration we've had against them in the last couple of years.
Yeah, it must be so satisfying. Like, oh, we've beat you by 186 points. Oh, we've won all these flags. Like, as a Freo fan, I know it all too well. You pipe up to an Eagles fan, it's just the classic, how many premierships have you won? And it's just like, rats, I got nothing. So hopefully one day we can beat him in a final and it can eradicate that. So yeah, it must be nice.
Gabe, you got a question from DCham69. He says, Gawn's third quarter, was that the best individual quarter in finals history?
It's bloody bonkers, mate. At the ground. Crazy.
Nick Davis comes to mind, to be honest.
Yeah, Nick Davis, that's a great call. I genuinely think Mason Cox is cemented in, like, definitely prelim folklore with his first term. Yeah, it was. And it was just the skipper putting the team on his back. And it was just unbelievable, the energy that he played with. He's usually a bit of a plodder that plods for 4 quarters. So it's like a real workhorse type work rate. Max Gawn, where he'll plod up and down the ground, but he'll do it all game and it's phenomenal. But he had this spring in his step. He has this sense of the history. He has the sense of the fans. He really encapsulates the 57-year drought and he puts it on his back and you can see that he really cares about it. And that third term just summed up how much it means to him. And that goal out of the middle was unbelievable. Oh that clearance was unbelievable. I think Gawn might have just kicked the goal, or maybe it was Fritter with the 50, and everything was starting to unravel for the Cats. And then Gawn kicks that goal from 55, and then the next clearance, it goes to Tommy Mack, and he just picks it up and snaps it. And within 3 minutes, it's game over. We're in the grand final, and
that's when we got you to scream up at the game. We're like, we need to see how Caden's reacting here. That first goal he kicked, it was like touched off
the boot. Yeah,
I think the man on the mark touched it. Gawny was aware to it, wheels around like a small forward and snaps it like a massive snap. That one out of the middle, you said, taps it down to Petrarca. Petrarca takes the game on fearlessly, gives the hands to Gawn. Gawn kicks it from 55 and it sails over the fence. There was one that we didn't even see because it was so quick out of the ruck
from the boundary line.
He just ruled on his boot. Had a set shot as well. And yeah, he's a crowd favourite over here even. The D's had 101 points from stoppages. Gawn was head and shoulders, literally and figuratively, above the opposition. And yeah, he was given first use all night to Jack Viney, to Clary and Petrarca. Like, when those four in particular are clicking, it's very, very, very hard to stop those guys. Demon mode.
Yeah, I think what's underrated a little bit is Jack Viney's a best and fairest winner. Like, he's an absolute star, and he's had issues with his feet for a long time. He's had so many like fractures and hot spots and just so many issues with his feet. He's missed chunks of games pretty much every year since he debuted, but him at his best, he's a best and fairest winner. He's an absolute mongrel. He's an absolute animal, and I just got so excited thinking of Jack Viney in finals. Like, if you go back to 2018, against Geelong and against Hawthorn in particular, he just goes beast mode. And I think people would probably say that, you know, Jack Viney's quite expendable. I think that would be an outsider's view. But if we are down a Jack Viney going into a game, it's a huge hole that is missing. And he was arguably, without a Max Gawn 5-goal performance, he's arguably best on ground in a prelim for the Melbourne Footy Club. 34 touches, had his head in the whole game. He's almost our defensive mid, and he just enables your Petrarcas and Olivers to do what they want. So Viney's performance, I think, was very underrated, and I can't wait to see him murder some people on grand final day. He will throw his head in places it shouldn't go. So I'm really excited to see Jack Viney go Jack Viney mode.
Yeah, he said Viney was one of the best on ground. Someone who stood out to me was Salem. We've been speaking about him over the last few days, Dosso, how strong he is through the core. He's such a natural runner. He creates so much run and spread off the half back line as well. But some of just like your role players, like your Charlie Spargos, your Petties, Sparrows, Bowies. I'm probably forgetting heaps, to be honest. But you've got so many just like bang average players who are just performing out of their skin at the moment. Like, if you chuck them in like a North Melbourne or a Freo, one of the lower ranked teams, they'd probably just be like, I don't know, just bang average players. But they know what they have to do week in, week out, and they're delivering. The performance was flawless across the park. You said to me last night that was the best game you've ever seen your side play, because there was really nothing you could fault about that performance.
It's just the hunger, and it's the pressure that becomes overwhelming. Like, I remember years and years and years, every draft, I'd watch the interview with Jason Taylor, the guru, the draft guy that runs our list, and he would say every time he described a player, he'd be like, "Oh, Luke Jackson, tall, but he's competitive. Tom Sparrow, oh, he's a midfielder from South Australia, he's competitive. Oh, we got James Jordan, who was playing local footy a little bit, he's competitive." So one key ingredient for the last 7 or 8 years is they've drafted competitors. I think Alex Neil-Bullen probably typifies that role player. He was going to get traded at the end of last year. Him, Tom MacDonald were exploring their options, and they came back, but they are now just playing in a system that complements them. I was looking at Geelong going into the game, and I thought they're probably top 5 to 8 players. Some of the top 5 to 8 players in the league. They're so explosive, they're so good, but they don't have a system, and if their top 5 to 8 players don't carry the side over the line, which they can do, and they've done it for years, they can fall short. And I think you saw like 23 players get the job done and 23 players contribute in a system, and I think you saw 2 or 3 players from the Cats try their best to carry the side, but when they can't do it themselves, it falls short, unfortunately.
Yeah, we've got a question about that from Shrexy_Sean. He wants to know, where to now for the Cats? I mean, they've pulled their dick out on the table this year and said, this is what we're doing. We're going balls to the wall. They traded 3 of their first round draft picks for Jeremy Cameron. There's no hiding from the fact that they are making a full premiership too.
It is actually very logistically difficult to have your dick on the table and your balls on the wall.
This is great banter. Where to now for the Cats? It's hard because like they've made their intentions clear. It's like premiership or bust.
You can't back out now, but then again, you almost have to. Like, I don't.
Their pull-out game is going to be weak.
I can't see the Cats improving next year. And it's like, and obviously it's going to be really hard. They were a top 2 side, and there's nothing really exciting that's coming up through their list at the minute because they've just been starved of opportunity. I just feel like they've starved some of these players a little bit too much. If you're a Narkle, a Geordie Clark, a Constable, I think there's another couple in there that are really, really getting impatient. I do understand why they would depart. They're in a real crossroads. It's either they come out with a fresh looking list next year. I'm not saying necessarily rebuild, but I'm just saying like freshen it up a little bit. I'm not so sure your Dalhouses and Higgins are necessarily the right go. So they got to freshen it up. So it's either they come out really fresh or they just double down with that age demographic and get a Goldstein and another couple and go one last roll of the dice. But I'm just not sure where that'll leave the club for the next couple of years. What do you boys think?
Yeah, I think the age thing is, I think you nailed it, Caden, was saying that it's okay to have the kids developing in the VFL, but they probably just have starved them a little bit too much, especially if you've got guys like Clark and Constable who may or may not be AFL quality who clearly want out, or at least it's reported that way. I mean, there's talk about rebuilds and stuff. I think that's a little bit extreme, especially for a team that just traded in the farm to get Jeremy Cameron. You don't do that and then 12 months later say rebuild. It's not smart. So their older players probably still have a couple of years in them, but they do need to have one eye on 2 years from now when those players are all gone.
What do you guys make about the 5 or 6 Geelong players who were quite ill before the game?
Excuses, mate.
I actually think I can believe it, to be honest. There's a rampant flu going around Perth. I mean, I work in retail and I look at the sick board every day. We got 5 or 6 out. I wouldn't be surprised if they got something, to be honest. I think it would be a bit too weak for them to say it if it wasn't true.
Yeah, 100%.
Should I just play players that aren't sick, though?
Well, they considered that, but then what if those 5 or 6 players are your Tom Hawkins or whatever?
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't think it would have mattered. I think it was probably the difference between 83 points and, say, 5 goals maybe, or 6 goals, but I don't think it mattered in the end.
All right, last question, because we've been talking for bloody ages, mate. How confident are you going into the grand final as a D's man, and how scared are you off the Bullfrogs?
I don't feel any fear anymore.
Fearless. I like it.
I feel like this club, I trust them. I've said that the last couple of weeks, but I genuinely trust them now. And I hadn't, like, all year, round 14, 15, I'm going, when are we going to fall off? When are we going to choke? When are we going to drop this? When are we going to, But no, I genuinely trust this footy club now. I do get nervous. Yeah, I do think of the Bulldogs playing their champagne, downhill skiing, front-running football and go, geez, if they get on top, it could be a long day at the office. But I just feel like, and I said this a couple of weeks ago, if you put a prelim final under the noses of this footy club, I don't think you're going to dangle that carrot that closely and not have them eat it. Did that work? Did that analogy work?
Yeah,
I'm not sure it worked. Now that we're into the grand final and we're here, I cannot really fathom them not doing the job, getting the job done. So I don't really have any fear. I'm nervous for the big occasion, but I just have a lot of faith and a lot of trust in this footy club that they'll put their best foot forward and whatever happens, happens.
I like it a lot. Thank you for your generosity and coming on the show heaps of times. We're going to have you on probably for a grand final preview in a couple of weeks as well, if that's all right. So, stick around on the Drewzy channel to see more of Caden MacDonald.
Beautiful.
Cheers, Dosso. Go subscribe to him, obviously. He's the bloody king. Jesus Christ, that was a long chat, mate. A lot longer than I expected. But, it was good. Now we move on to the next game, which was Port Adelaide versus the Western Bullfrogs. And we're going to start off by talking about this game by reading a comment from Asher_Khan69. I apologise to Drewzy and Jesse for bullying them about sleeping on Port. I am a spud. Nah, that wasn't good. Come on, give me a better one than that. There we go. I've been not sold on Port all year, Jesse. I've tipped them in big games, like when they played the Western Bulldogs at home earlier in the season. I tipped Port, they got pumped. I tipped them to beat Geelong at home. They got pumped. And I just wasn't sold on them all season. They sort of come into form at the end of the year, beat the Bulldogs when they were in bad form, beat Geelong, who we've seen are just not that good. I got hate for it when they beat Geelong because I just wasn't backing them.
And then you gave into it.
And I gave into it. Yes, I gave into it.
I saw this happening when we did the prelim tips. I tipped the Dogs. I didn't see a belting coming, but I was like, as soon as you tipped Port, I was like, I know the Dogs are going to win now.
I just did it out of I don't want to be hated by all the Port fans if they actually are the real deal. But they're not. They didn't even show up to the prelim. So, Port Adelaide fans. Nah, just kidding. You're a good bunch and I like you all. But, I had my reasons for not rating Port Adelaide. I had my reasons for rating good sides against them. And if I was going off my own logic, I would have tipped the Bulldogs in this game.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I would have. The Bulldogs have been absolutely magnificent.
It's your fault he got his tip wrong.
Yes. The Dogs have been absolutely magnificent in the last month, Jesse. They went down to Tasmania and beat Essendon. They flew over to Queensland and played Brisbane in their backyard. Won that by a point. They had to go to Port Adelaide. They didn't get to train for the last 2 days, but it was lucky they had a training drill Saturday night because they didn't have to play so hard. Nice. They've been in 5 different states in 14 days. It's absolutely bonkers what they're going through. And they've pulled through. Winners of the week as well. Yeah. Nice. The Dogs started hot Jesse. They were up. I think they kicked the first 5 goals
in about
of the
10
game.
minutes,
Plus 23 contested possessions, plus 9 clearances, plus 6 inside 50s. They're up by 37 points. Bailey Smith, Mitch Hannon getting off the chain early. And it just left a lot of work for the Port Power boys to do for the rest of the game. They were playing catch up for the rest of the game. Let the dogs up.
Port Adelaide.
Aliir was massive against Geelong, Jesse. He went to Luke Dalhouse and Gary Rowan and just floated across packs with the big forwards, guys like Hawkins and Jeremy Cameron. Tim English took him to the goal square most of the time, which just opened up the whole forward line, or Tim English led up the ground, just taking Aliir for a walk, basically, to open up the forward line for the Dogs. And it was an effective tactic.
Norton was also a really, really strong target for the Dogs. He had a really good game. He's also a hard player for them to sort of shut down because he's such a good contested mark. And I can't remember who it was. I think it was Jack Rewell highlighted that he really contorts himself in unnatural ways to protect the drop zone of the ball. And he was enormous.
We got another question from Shrexy Sean. He's contributed twice. What a king. What happened to Port? Why did they fall apart so badly? It's quite ironic given that their song is Never Tear Us Apart, and they just got absolutely torn.
Yeah, they got perforated. There's no clear answer to that because that was a terrible performance. Easily their worst performance of the year, so there's no real pattern to draw. Ultimately, they just didn't show up early, and when it was 5-0 in the first term, Port Adelaide got a few opportunities to sort of get back into the game after that, but then they got closed down or they'd miss a gettable goal, and frankly, they were just playing catch-up the whole game and their heads dropped.
And the Bulldogs have made the grand final from outside of the top 4. Again, Bontempelli had a sore knee. That must mean good left leg in Japanese or... fuck.
Leave that in.
Yeah, Bont was just brilliant. Sawney Bont. He's a special player, showed why he's one of the best players in the competition. He's in a grand final in his prime, and I'm so keen to see him matched up against Petrarca. That's going to be a matchup of dreams.
Yeah, Petrarca, Bont and Oliver, the players that people have been talking about all year, and they're going to be facing off in a grand final. It doesn't always happen that way. We saw Dusty and Danger last year, and that was talked about, but this year we got a similar sort of matchup.
Adam Treloar was sort of criticised by some plonkers in the media, such as Corns. So that was about it. But he had 13 score involvements, which was a game high. One of his best games for the Dogs. And Bailey Smith, he's had a pretty good season, but he has come into the red hottest of form that he's probably ever had in his career. He hasn't missed a game since he's been drafted, and this final series he has been one of the Dogs' best players. He had 1 goal and 20 touches against Essendon, 3 goals and 27 touches against Brisbane, 4 goals and 23 touches against Port. He's going to kick 5 next week.
Fuck, if he wasn't getting enough roots as it is, he's actually going to be drowning in booty.
Apart from being very attractive, he's a very good footballer.
Yeah, he is. Big game player. I think that's the biggest takeaway from this. He lives in big finals.
That ice in his veins as well gets his nervous system really clicking.
Yeah.
Cody Waitman didn't play with concussion, and Alex Keith didn't play as well, so they're probably going to come in. So we've got the Bulldogs versus Melbourne in the 2021 Grand Final, and I'm going to it, buddy, and you're going to stream it. So if you want some running commentary, be on the DrewFooty channel. If you want to see my match day experience, go and watch it on my channel. We've got another question here to finish the show from Riley Burke, and he says, is this the most unpredictable grand final in over a decade? Melbourne weren't in the top 8 last year, and the Bulldogs lost the final. It just gives me a lot of hope that there's going to be a Fremantle versus Essendon grand final next year.
I reckon Collingwood West Coast was more unpredictable. I think both of those, the Collingwood rebuilding, the Eagles were tipped by many to go close to bottom that year. At least with the Bulldogs and Melbourne, we could see the elite talent blossoming.
Yeah.
Melbourne obviously had 2018, the arse fell out of them, and we saw signs of growth in 2019. It is a surprise to see them click all at once. And similarly with the Bulldogs, I thought there would still be a few more years, but I think we even both said in the off-season last year, some of the Bulldogs youth is among the best in the league. So it is surprising, but it's not the biggest shock. It makes sense.
I think it's the best grand final matchup as well.
Yeah,
obviously, it's easy to say that now that they're both in the grand final, but the fact that they're 1-1, they've been 1-2 all season just about. The Dogs did it the hard way to make it to the grand final, but they've showed that they deserve to be there. Geelong, just unconvincing. Port, pretenders, happy days.
It's not always that you get the best 2 teams in the grand final in a given year. So, even though it's first versus fifth, I agree. This is the best 2 teams in the comp.
That's going to do it for today's show. There's no Just the Tips this week, but we are going to just do like a finals sides who have lost review.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, something like that. We'll whip something up.
We'll see you next week for the grand final preview. Be there or be square. We'll see you in the next video. Take care, you plonkers.
Bye.